The mysterious blood vault. The Galactic Assassins were the best in the galaxy. Trained in stealth, combat, and technology, they had completed missions no one else dared to attempt. This time, their mission brought them to a small, remote village on Earth, nestled deep in the Carpathian Mountains. The air was cold, and the village seemed trapped in time, with cobblestone streets and ancient buildings. Their leader, Commander Silas Kane, stepped out of their ship, scanning the area with his advanced visor. "This is the place," he said, his voice calm but firm. The target was an ancient castle rumored to hold a relic of unimaginable power. The Galactic Council had warned them. Failure was not an option. As the team approached the village, they noticed the uneasy stares of the locals. Old men whispered to each other. Women quickly pulled their children inside, and no one offered any greeting. It was as if their presence alone was a bad omen. One of the younger assassins, Lyra, broke the silence. "Why do they look at us like that?" "It's fear," said Draven, the team's weapons specialist. "They know something we don't." An elderly man, hunched over a cane, approached them hesitantly. His eyes were wide with warning. "You shouldn't be here," he said in broken galactic common. "We're here for the castle," Commander Kane replied. "Do you know anything about it?" The old man shook his head vigorously. "That place is cursed. It holds something evil. Many have gone there." None returned. Kane dismissed the warning. "Superstition," he muttered. "Let's move." The path to the castle was steep and winding, surrounded by thick, dark forest. The trees seemed to close in around them, and the further they went, the quieter it became. Even the chirping of birds and rustling of leaves faded away. When they reached the castle, its towering spires and crumbling walls loomed over them. The structure seemed alive, as if it were watching them. Lyra shivered but kept silent. Inside, the castle was even more unsettling. The air was thick, almost suffocating, and every step echoed loudly in the empty halls. Dust covered the floor, but strange claw marks were etched into the walls, as if something had tried to escape. Draven activated a scanner, searching for the relic's energy signature. "It's coming from below," he said. The team descended a spiral staircase, the steps creaking under their boots. The air grew colder, and an unnatural red glow began to light their path. At the bottom, they found a massive door, carved with symbols none of them recognized. "This must be it," Kane said. The door pulsed faintly, as if it had a heartbeat. Lyra reached out, but Kane stopped her. "Don't touch it. Draven, analyze it first." Draven stepped forward, scanning the door with his handheld device. His expression darkened. "This isn't normal energy. It's alive." Before they could decide what to do, the ground trembled. A low, guttural sound filled the air, like a growl from something ancient and angry. Shadows began to twist unnaturally, stretching and forming shapes that seemed to reach for them. "Step back," Kane ordered, drawing his plasma rifle. The others followed suit, weapons ready. The growl turned into a whisper, a voice that seemed to echo in their minds. "You dare disturb my rest." Lyra's eyes widened. Did anyone else hear that? Before anyone could respond, the door burst open with a blinding flash of red light. Inside, the room was empty except for a pedestal holding a blackened relic, pulsing faintly with the same red energy. Kane stepped forward cautiously. "That's it. Secure the relic." But as soon as he moved closer, the shadows around the room began to coalesce, forming into a tall, humanoid figure. Its eyes glowed crimson, and its voice filled the room. "You've made a deadly mistake." The figure stepped forward, its presence overwhelming. The team froze, unable to move, as the shadows seemed to wrap around them like chains. The air was filled with an unnatural chill, and the light from their visors flickered. Kane forced himself to speak. "Identify yourself." The figure smiled, revealing sharp, glistening fangs. "I am the guardian of this relic, the last of a forgotten legacy. And you will not leave this place alive." The team's training kicked in, and they opened fire. Plasma bolts lit up the room, but the figure moved like smoke, evading every shot. With a wave of its hand, the shadows surged forward, engulfing one of the assassins. The scream that followed was short-lived. "Fall back," Kane shouted, but the door behind them slammed shut, trapping them in the room. The figure's laughter echoed, cold and cruel. "You came here seeking power. Now you will understand its price." The story leaves the team cornered, with no escape, as they face the terrifying realization that they've awakened something far beyond their understanding. Dracula's legacy unleashed. The room seemed to breathe as shadows swirled around the Galactic Assassins, tightening like a predator's grasp. The entity before them wasn't just a figure. It was a presence, heavy and suffocating, like the weight of centuries pressing down on their chests. Lyra clutched her weapon tightly, her hands trembling. "Commander, what is this thing?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the low hum that filled the room. The figure stepped closer, its movements fluid yet unnatural. Its glowing crimson eyes pierced through them, making even Commander Kane hesitate. "You do not know what you've disturbed," the figure said, its voice layered with centuries of menace. "I am Vlad, once a man, then a monster. Now, something far worse." Kane raised his plasma rifle again, keeping his voice steady. "We've faced monsters before. You're just another mission." Vlad tilted his head, amusement flickering across his pale, angular face. "You think your weapons will save you? Foolish children playing with fire." With a flick of his wrist, the shadows surged again, snuffing out the light from their visors, plunging the room into near-total darkness. The only illumination came from the faint red glow of the relic, pulsing in time with their racing hearts. Draven, ever the tech expert, activated a flare, bathing the room in harsh white light. For a moment, the shadows recoiled, and the team saw Vlad clearly. His armor, dark and ornate, seemed to shimmer like liquid obsidian. His sharp fangs glinted, and his gaze held a mix of disdain and curiosity. "What is he wearing?" Lyra muttered, stepping back. "That's not human. It looks alien," Draven finished, his scanner beeping wildly. "His biology isn't fully human anymore. It's fused with something extraterrestrial." Vlad laughed, the sound echoing unnervingly in the confined space. "Ah, you see it now. Yes, your council knows of me. I was once their experiment, centuries ago. They came to this world, seeking to control it. They thought they could use me, make me their weapon. Instead, I became their nightmare." Lyra's eyes widened. "The council sent us here knowing this." Vlad's smile vanished. "Of course they did. They hoped you would succeed where others failed. But you, like the rest, are nothing but pawns." Commander Kane shook off the unease. "We didn't come here to chat. Team, formation, take him down." His voice snapped the team into action, and they unleashed a barrage of plasma fire. The room erupted into chaos. Bolts of plasma lit the shadows, creating brief, strobe-like flashes that revealed Vlad's movements. Quick, fluid, and almost impossible to track. He moved through the attacks as if anticipating each shot, his form dissolving into tendrils of shadow and reforming elsewhere. "Focus fire," Kane shouted, but it was no use. Vlad was toying with them, his speed and control over the environment turning their advanced weaponry into mere distractions. "Enough," Vlad said, his voice a sharp command. The shadows surged forward like a tidal wave, disarming the assassins in seconds. Their weapons clattered to the floor, swallowed by the darkness. Draven gritted his teeth. "We're not done yet." He reached into his pack, pulling out a small spherical device. With a press of a button, it emitted a high-pitched frequency, causing Vlad to flinch slightly. The reaction was fleeting but noticeable. Lyra caught on immediately. "Sound. It affects him." Vlad recovered quickly, his amused expression returning. "You think you found my weakness? How adorable." With a wave of his hand, The device shattered, and Draven was flung across the room, hitting the wall with a sickening thud. "Draven!" Lyra screamed, rushing to his side. He groaned, alive but barely conscious. Kane stepped forward, his voice steady despite the growing dread. "You want us dead? Fine. But at least tell me why. Why protect that relic? What is it?" Vlad's expression turned cold. "It is not protection, Commander. It is containment. That relic holds power far beyond your understanding. Power that could end not just your council, but all life in this galaxy. I guard it because I must. Because fools like you would doom us all." For the first time, doubt crept into Kane's mind. Had they been sent here to secure a weapon, or to unleash a catastrophe? His thoughts were interrupted as Vlad raised his hand, the shadows closing in again. "You've seen too much," Vlad said, "and now you will pay the price." But before he could strike, the relic pulsed brightly, sending a shockwave through the room. Vlad recoiled, his form flickering like a disrupted hologram. Lyra took the chance to grab Draven and pull him to safety. "What just happened?" she asked, her voice shaking. "The relic," Kane said, his mind racing. "It's tied to him somehow. If we can figure out how to use it, you will do no such thing." Vlad roared, regaining his composure. His form solidified, and the room grew colder, the shadows pressing in tighter. The assassins were cornered, their weapons gone, their options limited. But Kane's mind was already working on a plan. Whatever the relic was, it held the key to their survival, and perhaps even to defeating Vlad. The part ends with Kane locking eyes with Vlad, determination burning despite the odds. "We're not done yet," he said. For the assassins, the mission had changed. It was no longer about completing the assignment. It was about surviving the impossible and uncovering the truth about the Galactic Council's deadly secret, a deadly chase. The relic's pulse echoed through the chamber, its light carving through the oppressive shadows like a lifeline. The Galactic Assassins, battered but alive, exchanged uneasy glances. The presence of Vlad, ancient, alien, and predatory, had turned their mission into a nightmare. "We need to regroup and figure out what that relic is," Kane said, his voice firm but strained. "Lyra, help Draven. Keep him moving." Draven groaned, clutching his ribs. "Don't worry about me," he said, forcing a grin. "Worry about that thing coming for us." Vlad's eyes glowed in the dim light, his form towering as he stepped closer. "Run," he said, his voice dripping with mockery. "It makes the hunt more enjoyable." Kane didn't hesitate. "Move. Now," he barked. The team darted out of the chamber, adrenaline pushing them past the pain and fear. The ancient castle came alive around them. The walls seemed to twist, corridors stretched endlessly, and doors slammed shut before they could reach them. The structure wasn't just a building. It was a predator itself, responding to Vlad's will. "He's controlling the castle," Lyra shouted, her voice barely audible over the cacophony of slamming doors and echoing growls. "No," Kane corrected, panting as they turned a corner. "He is the castle." Behind them, Vlad's laughter echoed, cold and relentless. "You cannot escape. This is my domain. Every shadow, every stone, mine." Lyra glanced back and saw Vlad's silhouette moving effortlessly through the chaos. He didn't run or hurry. He didn't need to. The castle did his bidding. The team reached a fork in the corridor. "Split up," Kane ordered. "It's our only chance. Meet back at the main hall. Go." Lyra hesitated, fear flashing across her face, but she nodded. "Stay alive," she said, gripping Draven's arm as they veered left. Kane and the others sprinted to the right. Lyra and Draven's desperate escape. Lyra half-dragged Draven through the narrowing hallway. The air grew colder, and the faint sound of whispers surrounded them. She tightened her grip on her companion. "Just a little further," she said, though she had no idea where they were going. Draven managed a weak laugh. "You're terrible at lying, Lyra." Ahead, A door loomed, its surface covered in intricate carvings that seemed to shift and writhe. Lyra hesitated but pushed it open, revealing a room filled with dusty books and ancient artifacts. It was a study, untouched by time. Draven collapsed onto a nearby chair, wincing. What is this place? Lyra scanned the room, her eyes landing on an open book on the desk. The pages were filled with alien symbols, but the images, sketches of Vlad, the relic, and strange creatures, were unmistakable. This might be his history, she said, flipping through the pages. If we can understand it, maybe we can. The door slammed shut behind them. Lyra spun around, her pulse racing. The shadows in the room grew darker, pooling in the corners. Vlad's voice filled the air. Curiosity killed the cat. Little one. Kane's race against time. Meanwhile, Kane and the others navigated the labyrinthine corridors. He glanced at his wrist scanner, trying to map their path, but the readings were erratic, distorted by the castle's energy. One of the assassins, Rel, gritted his teeth. This place is a maze. How do we know we're not running in circles? We don't, Kane admitted. But staying still isn't an option. Suddenly, a shadow moved in front of them, forming into Vlad's shape. He blocked their path, smiling wickedly. Going somewhere. Rel fired instinctively, the plasma bolt cutting through the air. Vlad dissipated into smoke, reappearing behind them. You cannot harm me. You can only amuse me, for a while. Kane grabbed a small device from his belt, a beacon designed to emit a flash strong enough to disorient enemies. Cover your eyes, he shouted, throwing it to the ground. The flash erupted, illuminating the corridor in blinding light. Vlad recoiled, his form flickering as he growled in frustration. Clever, he muttered, his voice darker now. But not enough. Kane and Rel took the chance to dart down a side passage, their breaths heavy as the laughter resumed behind them. The castle's dark secret. In the study, Lyra's frantic reading paid off. She found a sketch of the relic, surrounded by symbols she recognized from the chamber. Beneath it was a simple diagram showing lines connecting the relic to something else. Vlad himself. It's a symbiosis, she realized aloud. The relic powers him, and he protects it. But if we can sever the connection... Draven interrupted, his voice weak but urgent. Lyra, we've got company. The shadows in the room coalesced, forming Vlad's shape. He stepped forward, his movements slow and deliberate. You learn quickly, he said, his tone almost admiring. But knowledge won't save you. Lyra grabbed a nearby artifact, a silver dagger etched with alien runes. She held it out, unsure if it would even work. Stay back. Vlad chuckled, his form rippling like smoke. Brave. Foolish, but brave. Before he could strike, the relic pulsed again, sending another shockwave through the castle. Vlad staggered, his form flickering once more. Lyra saw her chance. Draven, move, she shouted, pulling him toward a hidden passage revealed by the shockwave. Cliffhanger ending. The team converged in the main hall, battered and desperate. Lyra held up the book she had taken from the study. I know how we can stop him, she said, out of breath. We have to break his connection to the relic. Vlad's laughter echoed through the hall, louder and more menacing than before. You think you can defeat me? This castle is my body, my power. You cannot win. The assassins stood together, their resolve hardening despite the impossible odds. Kane tightened his grip on his weapon, his voice steady. We'll see about that. The part ends with the team preparing for their next move, the tension at its peak as Vlad's shadows close in once more. The Forgotten Covenant. The main hall was a battlefield of tension, every shadow a potential threat. Vlad's laughter reverberated, mocking their unity. You seek to sever what you cannot comprehend, he said, his voice slithering through the air. Do you not wonder why the relic remains here, guarded and untouched? It is not because of greed or power. It is because this is the only place it can be. Lyra held the ancient book tightly, her knuckles white. "He's stalling," she whispered to Cain. "He knows we're close to figuring this out." "Then let's give him a reason to worry," Cain replied, motioning for the team to move. "Lyra, you said the relic powers him. What's the plan?" She hesitated, flipping through the pages. "The relic is connected to his alien DNA. If we can disrupt that bond, maybe with the tech we still have left, we might weaken him enough to fight." "And if it backfires?" Draven asked, still clutching his injured ribs. "Then we're dead anyway," Lyra said grimly. "A hidden alliance." As the team moved deeper into the castle, Vlad's voice followed them, growing angrier. "You think you are clever, that you can rewrite the past. But the truth of the relic's purpose will destroy you." The passage opened into a chamber unlike the others. Instead of the cold stone and darkness that defined the rest of the castle, this room glowed with an otherworldly light. The walls were etched with intricate carvings, depicting scenes of humans standing alongside alien figures. Some carvings showed collaboration, others a violent struggle. At the center stood a towering obelisk, pulsing faintly with the same red energy as the relic. "What is this?" Lyra asked, her voice trembling with awe. Cain approached cautiously, scanning the carvings. "It's a record," he said. "A history of something." Draven, now leaning on the obelisk for support, winced as his scanner pinged. "This thing, it's not just a decoration. It's some kind of conduit, and it's feeding power to the relic." Lyra examined the carvings more closely. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a section that showed a human figure surrounded by chains, with alien symbols binding them. "This must be Vlad. He wasn't just guarding the relic. He was imprisoned here, along with it." Cain's jaw tightened. Imprisoned by who? The Covenant's truth. The obelisk's glow intensified, and suddenly, the room trembled. A holographic figure appeared, a tall, alien being with elongated limbs and a shimmering, translucent form. Its voice was calm yet commanding, speaking in a language the team's translators struggled to decode. "Prisoners have breached containment," the voice said, "initiating defense protocols." Lyra quickly held up her hands. "Wait, we're not prisoners. We're here to..." The hologram's gaze shifted to her. "You are not of the Covenant. State your purpose." Draven, groaning, muttered, "Great. An ancient security system." Cain stepped forward. "We're here to secure the relic." "What is its purpose?" The hologram hesitated, its form flickering. "The relic is a failsafe. It contains the essence of our kind's greatest weapon. We created it to end wars, to bring peace to the galaxy. But the one you call Vlad, he became corrupted. He took our gift and twisted it into a curse." Lyra's eyes widened. "So you imprisoned him? Here? On Earth?" "Yes," the hologram said. "He was to remain dormant, contained by the relic's energy. But your actions have awakened him. Now, the balance is at risk." Vlad's revelation. Before they could process the information, the room darkened, and Vlad's form emerged from the shadows. His expression was no longer smug, it was furious. "You dare speak of balance," he growled, addressing the hologram. "You betrayed me. You and your kind turned me into this abomination. You chose your path," a hologram replied coldly. "We gave you a gift, and you sought to wield it as a weapon." Cain aimed his rifle, stepping between Vlad and the obelisk. "Enough. If this thing is the key to stopping you, we'll use it." Vlad's laughter returned, bitter and sharp. "Do you think this device will save you? The relic is not your ally. It hungers, and once it is free, it will consume everything, including you." Lyra gritted her teeth. "You're lying. You've been feeding off it for centuries." Vlad turned to her, his crimson eyes narrowing. "You think I feed on it willingly. I am bound to it as much as it is bound to me. Sever the connection, and you unleash something far worse than me. The deadly dilemma. The team was at an impasse. The relic, glowing faintly in Lyra's hands, seemed to pulse in rhythm with the obelisk. Its energy felt alive, almost sentient. Kane's instincts told him that Vlad's warning wasn't just a bluff, but the alternative was unthinkable. "We're out of time," Kane said. "Draven, can you isolate the obelisk's connection to the relic?" Draven nodded weakly. "I'll need a few minutes. Just keep him off me." Kane turned to Lyra. "You and I will hold him here. Whatever happens, stick to the plan." Vlad stepped forward, his shadowy form expanding. "Fools! You meddle with forces you cannot comprehend. Your council sent you here to die, and I will ensure their wish is fulfilled." The part ends with the team preparing for a desperate fight, Draven frantically working to sever the connection, and Vlad advancing, his power growing with every second. Suspense peaks as the relic's glow brightens, hinting at the unimaginable consequences about to unfold. Turning the tables. The room pulsed with energy, the obelisk glowing brighter as Draven worked feverishly on his device. Vlad's shadowy form loomed closer, his movements deliberate yet terrifying. The tension in the air was palpable as Kane and Lyra stood between Vlad and Draven, weapons drawn but uncertain of their effectiveness. Vlad's voice was colder than the castle's chilling air. "You cannot sever what was never meant to be broken. This is a prison for me, yes, but it is also a seal. Destroy it, and you will doom your own galaxy." "Convenient excuse," Kane shot back, his rifle aimed squarely at Vlad's center. "You've been hunting us since we got here. Forgive us if we don't trust you." Vlad smirked, his crimson eyes narrowing. "You assume this is about trust. It is about inevitability." The shadows strike. Before Kane could respond, Vlad's form erupted into a swarm of shadows, tendrils snaking toward the team. Kane opened fire, the plasma bolts illuminating the room in brief, staccato flashes. The shadows writhed and recoiled, but they reformed faster than he could fire. "Keep him busy," Draven yelled, sweat dripping from his brow as he manipulated the device. "I'm almost there." Lyra moved to Kane's side, gripping the silver dagger she had taken earlier. "He's not invincible," she said, her voice trembling but determined. "We just have to find the right angle." "Then let's make one," Kane replied. The two launched a coordinated attack, Kane laying down suppressive fire, while Lyra darted in and slashed at the shadows with the dagger. To their surprise, the blade cut through Vlad's form, eliciting a hiss of pain. Vlad recoiled, his voice a mixture of rage and surprise. "Where did you get that?" Lyra smirked despite her fear. "Found it in your library." "Guess you didn't read the fine print." Draven's desperate gamble. As the battle raged, Draven's device emitted a low hum, the obelisk responding with pulses of energy. He muttered to himself, adjusting settings and rerouting power. "Almost. Got it," he whispered. The obelisk suddenly surged, sending a shockwave through the room. Vlad's shadows faltered, and his form flickered. He snarled, his eyes blazing. "You fools. Stop this now, or you will unleash what even I cannot control." "Keep talking," Draven muttered, his fingers flying over the controls. With a final adjustment, the device emitted a sharp, resonating tone. The obelisk dimmed, and the relic in Lyra's pack began to glow violently. "What did you do?" Lyra asked, her voice filled with both awe and terror. "I severed part of the connection," Draven said, panting. "The relic isn't feeding him anymore." But before he could finish, the relic pulsed again, this time sending out a wave of red energy that knocked everyone to the ground. Vlad screamed, his form twisting as if caught in an invisible vortex. The relic's true nature. As Vlad struggled to regain his form, the relic levitated out of Lyra's pack, hovering midair. It began to reshape itself, growing larger and more intricate, its design now resembling an alien containment unit. The holographic figure reappeared, its tone urgent. "You have disrupted the balance. The containment is failing." "What do you mean, failing?" Kane demanded, pulling himself to his feet. The hologram's flickering form turned toward him. The relic was not merely Vlad's power source. It is a prison for an ancient force far more destructive. Without his connection, the containment will break. Vlad, still writhing, managed to speak. "You fools. I was your last line of defense." The room began to shake violently, cracks spreading through the walls and floor. The relic's glow intensified, now almost blinding. Lyra gripped the dagger tightly. "What do we do? If reconnecting it is the only way?" "No," Kane interrupted. "We didn't come here to hand Earth over to some ancient power. If this thing's breaking out, we take it down." The final stand. The relic's glow solidified into a figure, a monstrous alien entity with a body of pure energy, its form shifting between humanoid and beast-like shapes. Its voice was a deep, guttural roar that sent chills through the room. The entity spoke in a language none of them understood, its words vibrating in their very bones. The hologram's voice trembled, uncharacteristically emotional. "The Force is awake. It will destroy all organic life unless stopped." Draven staggered to his feet, still holding his device. "I can redirect the containment field. Maybe trap it again, but it'll need a new anchor." Vlad, now barely maintaining his form, turned to Kane. "You have no idea what you're dealing with. If you trap it again, someone must guard it. Forever." Kane looked at his team, then at Vlad. "Guess that's your job." Vlad's laugh was weak but bitter. "You would trust me. The one you came to destroy." "Do we have a choice?" Kane shot back. "Cliffhanger ending." Draven adjusted his device, the containment field forming around the alien entity. Vlad stepped forward, his body flickering but resolute. "You may think you've won," he said, "but this is not the end." The field closed around Vlad and the entity, merging them into the relic once more. The castle began to collapse, forcing the team to retreat. As they reached the surface, the ground trembled violently, and the castle sank into the earth, disappearing entirely. Breathing heavily, Lyra turned to Kane. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Kane stared at the horizon, his expression grim. "We stopped one threat, but something tells me this isn't over." The part ends with the relic's energy faintly pulsing underground, a dark promise of challenges yet to come. The final confrontation. The dust settled as the castle disappeared beneath the earth, but the unease lingered in the air. The relic's faint pulse, visible even through the dirt, seemed to whisper of its enduring presence. The Galactic Assassins stood in silence, their breaths heavy and minds racing. Lyra broke the stillness, clutching the ancient book. "It's not over. The field is unstable." Draven said it himself. "This is temporary." Draven, barely standing, nodded weakly. "I did what I could, but without a stable anchor, the containment will fail again. Sooner than we think." Kane's jaw tightened as he looked at the faint glow beneath their feet. "Then we make it permanent. We finish this." A desperate revelation. The ground beneath them shuddered, the relic's glow intensifying. From the earth erupted tendrils of energy, twisting and snapping like living things. The energy coalesced into the monstrous entity once more, its form larger and more chaotic, as if the brief containment had only enraged it. This time, Vlad emerged with it, his form translucent and ghost-like, bound to the entity by shimmering chains of energy. His voice was strained, his once mocking tone replaced with raw anger. "You have no idea what you've unleashed." "Then help us," Kane said, stepping forward. "If you want this thing stopped, prove it." Vlad hesitated, the chains around him tightening as the entity roared, its voice a cacophony of alien tongues. "You would trust me now, after everything?" Kane nodded. "We don't have a choice. This thing doesn't care who or what we are. It'll kill everything." For the first time, Vlad's crimson eyes softened. "Foolish, but bold. Very well. The plan." The holographic figure reappeared, flickering and distorted. The entity has absorbed too much energy. It cannot be contained conventionally. Lyra stepped forward, holding the silver dagger. Then how do we stop it? The hologram paused. The obelisk. Its energy can disrupt the entity's core. But to activate it, someone must channel their life force into the mechanism. Draven frowned. That's a death sentence. No, Vlad interjected. It's worse. The obelisk doesn't kill, it binds. Whoever channels the energy will become the new prison. Silence fell over the group. Kane's gaze hardened. Then we'll do what we have to. Vlad shook his head. You cannot handle it. Your kind wasn't built for this. But I was made for this purpose, whether I wanted it or not. Lyra stepped closer to Vlad, her voice firm. You're saying you'll trap yourself again. Why? Vlad met her eyes. Because I must. I am the only one who understands what this thing is capable of. And because I owe this world my penance. The final stand. The team scrambled to reconstruct the obelisk's energy field, using Draven's device to amplify its power. The entity grew more unstable, its form shifting between energy and matter as it lashed out, the ground quaking with its fury. Kane and Lyra fought valiantly, using every weapon and tactic they had to distract the entity, while Draven calibrated the field. Vlad, despite his weakened state, joined the battle, his shadowy form striking with precision and fury. Hold it steady, Draven shouted, his fingers flying over the controls. I just need a few more seconds. The entity roared, its tendrils snapping toward Draven. Lyra intercepted one with the silver dagger, the blade glowing as it severed the energy. Not today, she muttered, panting. Vlad turned to Kane. Get your team out of here. This castle, this land, it will not survive what comes next. Kane hesitated. What about you? Vlad smirked faintly. I was never meant to leave this place. A sacrifice for eternity. As the obelisk activated, Vlad stepped into the center of the energy field. The chains around him dissolved, and the entity let out a deafening roar, its form unraveling as the obelisk pulled it in. The energy intensified, and Vlad's form began to merge with the obelisk. He turned to the team one last time. Tell the galaxy the truth. The Council's lies have caused this. Let my name be a warning. The obelisk's light engulfed the chamber, forcing the team to retreat. Kane grabbed Lyra and Draven, pulling them away as the energy surged. The ground quaked violently, and a massive explosion of light erupted, swallowing the entire area. Cliffhanger ending. When the dust settled, the obelisk stood alone, glowing faintly. The castle was gone, and Vlad's presence was no more. The land was eerily quiet, as if holding its breath. Draven leaned heavily on Kane, his voice a whisper. Did we win? Lyra stared at the obelisk, her grip on the dagger tightening. For now. The faint glow of the relic beneath the obelisk pulsed once, a silent reminder of the danger that still lingered. Kane looked at the horizon, his face grim. This isn't over, not by a long shot. The part ends with the team walking away from the site, battered but alive, as the camera pans back to the obelisk, its light flickering ominously, a promise of more to come. The real threat revealed. The team trudged away from the collapsed castle, the landscape eerily silent. The faint glow of the obelisk behind them was a haunting reminder of what they had just survived. Every step felt heavier, not just from exhaustion, but from the weight of their actions. Lyra glanced back, her fingers brushing the silver dagger at her side. Do you think he's gone? She asked, her voice trembling. Draven, still leaning on Kane for support, shook his head. Vlad's not gone. He's part of the obelisk now, bound to it, like before. But this time, he might not be enough. Kane didn't respond. His eyes scanned the horizon, his mind racing with possibilities. We need answers, he said finally. Real answers, and we're not getting them here. The Council's betrayal. Hours later, back aboard their ship, the Galactic Assassins reviewed the data they had gathered. Lyra placed the ancient book on the central table, its pages glowing faintly under the ship's lights. Draven's scanner hummed as he analyzed the relic's lingering energy signatures. "This isn't just a relic," Draven said, his voice grim. "It's a signal." Kane's brow furrowed. "A signal to what?" Draven hesitated, then pointed to a star map on the ship's display. "It's broadcasting to a specific point in deep space, a system the Council classified as restricted territory." "Why would the Council send us to secure something broadcasting to a restricted zone?" Lyra asked, her frustration evident. "They knew more than they told us." Kane clenched his fists. "They didn't want us to succeed. We were bait. If we died, they'd sweep this under the rug. If we survived, we'd clean up their mess." The signal's destination. As the team decoded the signal, the ship's eye chimed in. "Signal analysis complete. Destination identified. System X-12, uncharted coordinates. Warning, high probability of hostile activity." Draven looked up from his console. "X-12. That's not just restricted. It's where the Council sent their worst experiments. The ones they couldn't destroy." Lyra's eyes widened. "You're saying this thing, the entity, was part of one of their experiments?" Draven nodded. "Not just part of it. It was the result." Kane stood abruptly, his voice sharp. "Set course for X-12. If the Council knew about this, we're not letting them bury it." Lyra hesitated. "What if it's a trap? We're barely holding it together as it is." Kane's gaze hardened. "Then we spring it. We've already started this fight. We're going to finish it." The Forgotten Fleet. The journey to X-12 was tense, every moment filled with the weight of uncertainty. When they arrived, the team stared at the view screen in shock. The system wasn't empty. It was a graveyard of ships, some ancient, others bearing the insignia of the Galactic Council. "What is this?" Lyra asked, her voice barely a whisper. "A war," Kane replied, his tone grim. "And it looks like the Council lost." As they navigated the wreckage, a massive station came into view. It was dark, its structure cracked and worn, but faint signals still pulsed from its core. Draven's scanner beeped wildly. "That's where the signal's going," he said. The ship docked cautiously, and the team prepared to enter. The station's interior was cold and lifeless, its corridors littered with remnants of failed experiments, creatures twisted and unrecognizable. "This is what the Council was hiding," Lyra said, her stomach turning. "This is their legacy, the final revelation." In the station's central chamber, the team found a massive terminal. As Draven accessed it, a hologram of an alien appeared. Its form was humanoid but distinctly otherworldly, with eyes that glowed faintly. "I am Siren, overseer of the Covenant's final experiment," the hologram said. "If you are seeing this, the containment has failed." "Containment?" Kane asked, stepping forward. "What are you talking about?" "The entity you encountered was not the first," Siren explained. "It was the culmination of decades of experimentation to harness the power of a sentient energy force. But we underestimated its hunger. It devoured its creators and sought to consume entire worlds." Lyra's face paled. "And you sent it to Earth." "It was the only option," Siren said. "Earth's unique energy field could suppress its power. But the Council betrayed us. They exploited the entity for their own purposes, creating weapons and experiments that doomed countless lives." Draven's voice was bitter. "And now it's free again." The hologram's eyes flickered. "There is one solution. Destroy the anchor, destroy the obelisk. It will sever the entity's connection to this dimension." Kane frowned. "And what happens to Earth?" The hologram paused. "Earth will survive. But the Council will not. The energy surge will expose their lies, disrupt their power. Are you willing to risk it?" The ultimate choice. The team stood in silence, the weight of the decision pressing down on them. Destroying the obelisk would end the entity's threat, but could destabilize the entire Galactic Council. Leaving it intact meant trusting Vlad to contain the entity, a risk they couldn't afford. Kane's voice was steady. "We do it. We end this, and we make sure the Council pays for what they've done." Draven nodded. "I'll set the charges, but once we do this, there's no turning back." Lyra glanced at Kane. "And if Vlad somehow survives?" "Then we deal with him," Kane said, "one fight at a time." The endgame. The team returned to Earth, their ship descending into the now desolate site of the obelisk. As the charges were placed, the obelisk pulsed faintly, as if sensing its impending destruction. "You can feel it, can't you?" Vlad's voice echoed faintly, his form appearing in the obelisk's glow. "You're about to destroy the last thing holding this galaxy together." Kane stepped forward, unflinching. "You had your chance to help. This ends now." Vlad smiled, his form fading. "Perhaps it does, or perhaps it's just the beginning." The charges detonated, and a blinding light consumed the area. As the energy surged, the obelisk shattered, and the entity's roar was silenced forever. The relic was gone, its power extinguished. Epilogue. The team stood amidst the ruins, the world eerily quiet. Lyra turned to Kane. "Did we do the right thing?" Kane looked at the horizon, the first rays of dawn breaking through. "We stopped the entity. We exposed the Council. Now we deal with what comes next." As they boarded their ship, a faint signal flickered on their console. A new warning, a new beginning.